want to kind of talk about the mindset. I know we've spoken about writing it down in a journal, writing things down, repetition, affirmations. Um, I will say this. Um, Men can be very, and this is strictly speaking for some men, not all men, mostly myself, right? Um, a lot of men that are just like me can be a little bit stubborn and a little bit prideful and what we call a lot stuck in our ways, right? I'm an older guy. I'm an older guy. You know what I mean? I got 30 plus years of doing things a certain way.
Wait, what's older?
I mean,
I might be older than you.
well, I mean,
Or were we born in the 80s?
Yeah, born in the 80s. Born in the 80s.
Like 80, 81?
83.
I was born in 81.
80. Okay. Okay. So, all right. Okay. So
I'll be 41 next week.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
A little early, but.
So you can kind of understand the stuck in the way syndrome, right? Especially, I've always had this mindset and thought that men tend to, including myself, tend to stay on the same trail, stay on the same train track, right? Women can navigate very quickly. I was always told as a young man, women mature quicker than men. And that is true, right? So I want to speak on the mindset of men, right? The decision making, the awareness, the having to pick up a journal without saying, this ain't manly, this ain't manly. You know what I mean? The feeling judged, the feeling of like this fear of being open and vulnerable, right? I think a lot of times we as men, and it made me think when you told your story, is that men view vulnerability and the openness to sex. That's their way of being vulnerable and open. Hey, I'm giving you sex. That's my innuendo. That's my openness to my heart is through sex.
Right? And rightfully so. And I think that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's other ways in addition to sex. Mm-hmm. And because you may have that emotional attachment or because you're making that connection through sex, again, I think it's important to take your time. And so that way, you know that if that's one way how you communicate, or if that's one of your love languages, the intimacy, just take your time so that way you don't end up being hurt.
But the thing about it is, okay, go ahead.
Hurt or just, maybe disappointed or have to go through some turmoil with that person because you kind of jumped the gun, or because you don't have any other way of, you haven't learned or tried to express any other way of communicating or sharing your feelings, thoughts, or how you feel.
So I think you bring up a good point to where I think we as men tend to figure out that navigation by having sex with multiple women, right?
Not all men, though. Not all.
Some men. I'm not saying all men. That's why I said some men. Some men, not all men. And Jay is laughing because there's
not all people. So it's people, because women. Some of this stuff, what we're saying, is universal. That's why you can relate.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. And I think men. I'm speaking to the fellas because there are some instances where women do it, but I think women learn from the lessons quicker than men do. To a certain degree. To a certain degree. It depends on the situation. We'll say that.
Yeah, it depends.
Okay, it depends on the situation.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah,
okay. Go ahead. It depends. Yeah,
it depends on the situation, right? Because I mean, every situation is different. But I think men value the decision making based on the right type of woman by the performance in bed, not necessarily the personality of a woman, her what does she value within life? What is our long-term goals? What are our short-term goals? Are we aligned in our thinking process, right? And a lot of men don't look at it that way. We don't look at it that way. That's why we don't want to communicate. We don't want to feel like, when we communicate, that's when all the problems happen. We view attraction and beauty more than the core values. That's just
was that taught? Where do we learn that from?
Yeah.
Is that something? What is so now?
I think it's the way we were brought up. We as men, the way our fathers treated our mothers.
Yeah, because some fathers.
The single family syndrome. Mothers raising sons, fathers not being in their children's life. That's a stigma. Go ahead.
Yes, but let's not. So there's this guy that I interviewed. I don't know if behind me, there's this book. Black people need people who believe in Black people enough not to believe every bad thing they hear about Black people.
That is a very long title, but I appreciate it.
Ivory Tolson. So I actually interviewed him on my Connection show. And so I think the single mom raising a Black boy, that narrative is not true for the majority of the Black race in this country, and African Americans, if folks don't, however people identify, because I do know some people are from the diaspora or the West Indies and different things like that. But fathers are present, and Black fathers are present. So, and then keep in mind how do we even define single? Who told us what single meant, right? Okay. And so let's say we're completing the US Census. I could be in a relationship with my child's father, but on the census or the paperwork that I'm filling out because I need to get this free lunch or whatever I need to do, or just in general, I'm not married. So I'm single. So therefore I'm counted as a single parent household. I grew up with my mother up until I moved with my dad when I was 16, but my dad was present my whole life, took me to and from school, every childhood activity that I was ever in. If my dad didn't take me, he was responsible for making sure it happened through his sisters. I went on, my dad was always present, still is. I'm a daddy's girl. But my parents were never, I have no childhood memory of my parents being together. And neither one of them have been married. Interesting. So now I'm thinking about, just me, because we learned this stuff. Even if no one said, if the parent didn't say, this is how it should be, we still learned it from watching.
We model what we see.
Exactly, right? But I'm saying my mother, depending on who wants to tell the story, she was a single parent, right? But that's not my perception. My father was present every day in my life. So I'm just saying, I just wanted to, fathers are present. Black fathers are present.
Yeah. Okay. So let's paint that.
Maybe not enough. My Black father of my son is not present, just as clarification,
let's clarify on that. Because I want to, you're digging into a conversation I want to kind of talk about, right? If we're going to compare this to what the Census Bureau is saying, that, quote unquote, Black fathers are not present, right? But there are instances where it starts with single mothers, some, not all, some. And I don't want to even go into statistics and numbers. There are single mothers and single fathers that battle and argue with each other. Who sees that? The child sees that. The child learns that. It's a confusion effect to where sometimes that child is going to grow up so confused because the father and mother do not respect each other, do not, align with each other, right? There are times, now, I'm not saying that there aren't Black fathers out there, right, that aren't there for their children. It's just not brought up enough, right? Black fathers have a very bad reputation for, even when a single Black father is single, not dating anyone, and goes out on a date, right? And the woman asks the man, hey, do you have any kids? Yeah, I got a kid. The first, I can probably put money on it. The first thought that woman's going to say, why aren't you in that child's life? Are you in that child's life? Right? That's always the first either perception or thought. Like, oh, he's got a child. Is he not around the child? Do I got to deal with baby mama drama?
That's fair. Those are fair questions.
And but it's never a perception to the thought that a man or a woman may not see that father being in that child's life until she is around him enough.
True.
There's always a negative perception to say, this person can say, I'm not going to date based off of the potential of the negative perception when you haven't even been around this person enough. Now, if you're around this person, he's not around the child, he's all this, that's a different story. But my point is that one, there's not enough awareness as far as Black fathers being around in a child's life. That's one. Two, Black fathers have this perception of, they have a bad reputation within this quote unquote system, right? And three is the fact that my original point is that you're confusing a child to grow up just like the way their parents were around each other. If they're divorced, they're not getting along, the mother's not around, the father's not around, what does that do to the child? All you're doing is repeating a cycle.
I think there are two responses I have to that. One is one thing I'm recognizing the older I get, and why I try to be more, and part of the reason why I try to be more vocal and more communicative and everything like that is a lot of times the satisfied and content majority gets drowned out by the dissatisfied minority. Now, I'm not talking about from a systems perspective, so to speak. I'm not talking about in terms of the like changing systems or anything like that. I'm talking about perception. So people believe that the loudest person in the room oftentimes has to be right. It's like, well, I'm hearing him speak more often, so obviously that has to be true because that's what I'm hearing most often. Meanwhile, the satisfied and content majority doesn't say anything. They won't speak up because they're happy, they're satisfied. People complain louder than they complain more often than they give gratitude for whatever situation they're in. Like me, I grew up in a 2-parent household, and I am grateful for that every day. Like I have a father, I love my father, but I was not comfortable telling him that every day for a long time.